Gentle dad, just a little mom can hear my voice trembled slightly weak like the sound of wind blowing through the crack of the door. My throat tightened, each word coming out with difficulty, as if I was trying to hold back something that was about to burst. My heart was pounding in my chest as if it was about to burst. My hands unconsciously tightened around the blanket. My breathing was no longer even ragged and intermittent. Every small sound in the quiet room made my heart skip a beat, afraid that the secret would be exposed to the light. Hello everyone, I'm Maya. Today I will share my story, a tale I once believed would remain buried, never to see the light of day again. The heartbreaking truth is that I'm the only fault in this narrative. Feels so far-fetched, like something out of a movie, yet it unfolded in my own life. No matter how desperately I wish to erase the memories, they linger, haunting me daily. I fear I will never find a way to tell me my mistakes or achieve peace with the person I have deeply hurt. The wounds I caused were not only emotional but also with the trust that was lost. No matter how hard I tried, I could not erase what I had done. I am a pretty girl living with my parents in the small town of Carmel by the Sea, California, a peaceful and poetic place. My father, Alexis, the owner of a famous seafood restaurant in the area, he always takes good care of his body and likes to go to the gym, so even though he is nearly 50 years old, his body is still toned strong and looks much younger than his real age. He is strong, decisive, but my mother, Sarah, a literature teacher at the nearby school, has always been gentle with me. She possesses a delicate nature and a profound love for classical literature. Each night she sits by the window, immersed in her books under the warm glow of the light, never failing to affirm advice and an abundance of love. She has been my guide in learning to live sincerely and emotionally from my childhood into adulthood. Throughout my life, I have been enveloped in the love of both my parents, who have devoted themselves entirely to nurturing and protecting me in my younger years. Every time when my father returned from work, he would dash to him, throwing myself into his embrace, my small arms encircling his neck. As I hugged him tightly in those minutes, he was my sanctuary, the embodiment of safety and security. Just being in his arms made everything feel right. I didn't overthink it. I simply felt cherished and protected. I was also a girl with a passion for beauty. Drawn to fresh and lovely things, I often selected the most exquisite dresses for myself, and each time I donned one, I would twirl around in front of my parents, eagerly awaiting their compliments. My parents always smiled at me, their eyes brimming with pride. Those simple compliments made me feel like the happiest girl in the world. After every dinner, when the whole family gathered around the TV, I would sit down on my father's lap. He often held me in his arms, and those hugs were gentle and warm. He grew up with that pampering to that point that it became a hard habit to break. Even as I grew older, I still found myself sitting on my father's lap, just like when I was a child, as if I were still a little girl, craved love and protection and the safety of his embrace, a bond that brought her small joy she never wished to part with. Yet lately, at time she climbed onto her father's lap or rushed to hug him, the warmth felt altered. There was an oddity in his response that she couldn't ignore. He no longer welcomed her hugs with the same ease. Instead, there was a hesitation, his arms tightening a bit more than they used to. The way he gazed at her had shifted too, losing the gentleness and warmth that once defined their connection. The warmth of a father loving his child brings comfort, yet there were moments when I sensed the confusion in his eyes, as if he were concealing something beyond my grasp. In those instances, my heart races, intuition whispering that something is amiss. How I hesitate to accept it. Perhaps I am overthinking, perhaps it's merely a fleeting emotion, yet this unease lingers, suggesting that life has become more complex than it once was. My father, despite his age, maintains a passion for exercise, embodying a vitality that contrasts with the shadows. Often Sotania, I sometimes perceive it continues to possess a strong and stylish physique reminiscent of his youth. Not just a father, he embodies strength and charm, qualities I have always admired. When I gaze at him, I can't help but acknowledge his enduring handsomeness, with broad shoulders and a toned body. Each time he walks by, I feel a deep fondness for him, an indescribable sensation that may stem from the confidence he radiates or his formidable appearance, which takes me back to my childhood, when he was my entire world. Yet recently, that feeling has shifted slightly. It was different. It wasn't merely the admiration of a daughter for her father, but rather an indescribable feeling that lingered in the air. I found myself gazing at my father longer than usual, and whenever I was near him, an unusual sensation stirred within me. One day, as was customary, I returned home from school to find my father already there. He always arrived before my mother, often settled on the sofa absorbed in the television. His eyes were fixed on the screen, and as I stepped through the door, I still saw him there, peaceful and familiar, without a hint of hesitation. As I grew older, I rushed to him, feeling an instinctive familiarity, It leaped onto his lap just like I did as ogled without hesitation, Dad embraced me as he always had. But this time there was a shift. The hug remained warm, yet the air around us felt altered, leaving me more uneasy than I had ever been. I attempted to dismiss the sensation, convincing myself it was merely my imagination, yet it was more than a passing thought. I became aware of something pressing against me as I sat there first. I attempted to dismiss it, convincing myself that it was merely the awkwardness of my position or perhaps something in his pocket, yet as time passed, it became increasingly evident. Like an undeniable presence, my heart raced and the atmosphere shifted, feeling thick and oppressive. What once brought comfort now felt unsettling and awkward. I remained still, striving to maintain my composure, but a flurry of unanswered questions swirled in my mind arose in my heart. Dad's eyes were shine silent like mine. We both say nothing, just sat in the stuffy atmosphere until Mom suddenly walked in, breaking the silence. I wanted to stand up, but it felt like my legs were tied down, unable to move. Dad didn't say anything, just silently looked at me, and in his eyes, I no longer recognized the familiar warmth of the old days. Then suddenly, the sound of the door opening rang out. My mother walked in, breaking tension, and we both quickly looked away from each other, quickly stood up, attempting to maintain a sense of normality, yet the peculiar sensation lingered, pressing down on my heart, as if something had irrevocably shifted. Everything appeared ordinary on the surface, but I could distinctly sense that change. My dad seemed to be showing more concern for me. He frequently inquired about my life, paying attention to the small details he had previously worked. He began purchasing new clothes and items I hadn't requested initially. Those gifts bewildered me, but gradually it dawned on me that the scare had shifted away from fatherly love. Then came the day when the barrier between my father and me was irrevocably shattered. A moment etched in my memory. Mother had to leave for a business trip due to a school proposal, leaving just my father and me at home. I returned from school, stepped inside, and was met with an utterly surprising sight. My father had set a lavish dinner on the dining table. The ambience in the house transformed, taking on a subtly romantic quality. The candlelight flickered, casting a warm glow over the table, where the aroma of delicious food wafted through the air. 2 bottles of red wine stood proudly, already uncorked. My surprise was palpable. My eyes widened as he turned to my father, laughter escaping me lips. "Why are you so thoughtful today?" asked, still believing it was merely a delightful coincidence, a happy surprise devoid of any deeper meaning. With his familiar smile, my father replied that had good news to share. From their restaurant, something successful he wanted to celebrate. I felt a surge of happiness and chose not to probe further. I simply wanted to savor this dinner with my father. We sat at the table sharing food and drink, the wine flowing smoothly in our glasses. The soft candlelight enveloped us, creating a warmth and intimacy that felt unparalleled. In that minute, everything seemed perfectly normal, almost too familiar. Yet from this closeness, a deeper meaning began to emerge, a feeling I struggled to articulate. We enjoyed our meal and shared confidences, reminiscing about my childhood when I was the little girl who always clung to him. Sweet memories and little jokes filled the air. They made us both laugh as if all the tension from before had melted away. Laughter echoed in the warm room, and the atmosphere between us felt closer than ever. After 12 bottles of wine were finished, I could feel myself starting to get drunk. My mind was hazy, and the alcohol blurred all reason. We sat closer to each other, and I don't know if it was the alcohol or something else, but suddenly a question slipped from my lips that I never thought I would ask. "Do you like me?" inquired, my voice soft, no longer resembling a child's asking a father. That question was not the innocent question of a child, but carried a deeper meaning, as if I was asking from a completely different perspective, a perspective that my sober mind would never allow me to say. My father was silent for a moment, then he turned to look at me, his eyes deep and thoughtful, as if he was examining something in Sadim. Then he answered, his voice wore yes, just one word, but it was heavy and full of hidden meaning. We both looked at each other. In that moment, the space seemed to freeze between us. The bond between us transformed, evolving into something that transcended the familiar ties of father and daughter. In that moment, I was unsure of what compelled me. Perhaps it was the alcohol or the flood of emotions that had long been buried. Without a word, I found myself reaching out to embrace me father's neck. A peculiar sensation washed over me, yet I pressed on, thoughts fading away. Understood was that I wasn't able to restrain myself. My father hesitated briefly, but soon reciprocated, his arms enveloping me around my waist, embracing in me with an intensity that erased the space between us. Our gaze locked, lingering in a moment that spoke of volumes, as if words had become necessary. In that silence, we grasped at unspoken thoughts swirling within. User lips met, initially slow and tentative, As if we were unearthing a long-lost tenderness, yet within moments the uncertainty faded, replaced by anal-consuming passion. Our embrace tightened, not merely to draw nearer, but as if we were desperate to hold on to this connection in this moment. My heart raced, and the warmth of my father's presence enveloped me, causing the world around us to fade away. He began to softly trace my back, his hands exploring every contour, every breath. What started as gentle tenderness slowly transformed into a yearning touch, as if he were unable to contain the growing desire. His fingers glided over my skin, both careful and eager, as if he sought to discover every inch without overlooking a single detail. Each caress sent shivers through me, igniting a sensation that lingered in the air. Understanding his every movement, my father lifted me with a gentle yet firm grip, his strong arms enveloping me as I feared the moment would end. I clung to his neck, sensing the rhythm of our quickening breaths. He moved forward confidently, guiding me into a room shrouded in darkness, illuminated only by the faint glow from outside. In that instant, nothing else mattered, not time, not space, only the bond we shared. As if the world had come to a standstill, thoughts fading away, leaving behind a profound sense of connection and overwhelming desire for a profound bond that transcended language. My father gently laid me on the bed, and our lips met once more, intertwining in tender yet fervent kisses, as if we were destined to hope together. He sensed his warm breath mingling with the quickened rhythm of my heart. His hands moved deliberately, unfastening my shirt with each caress. Each button released brought a sense of exposure, not just from the fabric falling away, but from the raw vulnerability we were both laying bare. That sensation quickened my pulse, clenched, yet as the night unfolded, all reservations gradually vanished. We no longer held anything back. Every barrier was shattered, leaving only that wove us in a world of our own gesture. Each touch resonated with a deeper significance, as if we aimed to touch each other's essence into our very beings. We offered everything to owning another, not merely physical closeness, but a profound intertwining of emotions and long-buried desires. That night, we both realized that all boundaries had dissolved, was erased, leaving only the undeniable presence of one another. In that fleeting moment, the following day, when my mother came back home, everything appeared to revert to its usual state. My father and I engaged in our typical bender smiles exchanged, as if the previous night had been just another ordinary occurrence. My mother remained oblivious to the shift in the atmosphere we shared. Breakfast, discussing mundane topics like any typical family would, yet beneath the surface I was acutely aware that we both understood the weight of what had transpired. Even as we maintained our facade of normality, a heavy silence enveloped my father and me, where every glance and movement held a deeper significance, as if we were privy to a secret that remained hidden from fuel. Despite our awareness of its wrongness, we did not cease our encounters, grew more clandestine and rushed, heightening the tension between will and longing. We understood the implications, yet neither of us was inclined to halt. Each touch, each gaze suggested an unspoken agreement to persist, devoid of words or commitments. And one night, while my mother slept soundly, my father stealthily approached into my room. Without a whisper, I remained in a deep slumber, blissful enough of my father lying beside me, his arms enveloping me. When I finally stirred, the unexpected warmth enveloping jolted my senses. I turned my head slightly, and there was this familiar face so close. A fleeting moment of surprise washed over me, but then a gentle smile graced my lips as I embraced my father. In that instant, the world around us faded away, leaving just the two of us. Gently, Dad, be careful, Mom won't hear, whispered, my voice quivering like the cold wind blowing through the crack in the door. Each word felt heavy, as if I was trying to contain something profound within me that was on the verge of breaking free. My throat constricted while my heart thud fiercely. My chest, my hands instinctively gripped the blanket, seeking to quell the shivers coursing through me. My breathing grew heavy, as if each inhale was stifled by an unseen dread. The room enveloped in an eerie silence. Even the faintest noise or movement sent my heart racing, terrified that the truth there was a whisper of adventurous love, a secret that threatened to unravel everything we had concealed. The fear of exposure morphed into an all-consuming obsession, yet I found myself unable to refuse. Whenever it arrived, it dawned on me that I wasn't snared in this relationship, fully aware of its inevitable demise. Then that day I had dreaded finally arrived. My mother called to inform me that something had come up, preventing her from returning home as scheduled. She would only be back the following morning. A fleeting sense of relief washed over him and Dad when we believed we were safe from interruption. That night we were carefree, convinced we had until the next morning. Suddenly, my mother returned. We'd earlier than anticipated, catching us off guard. In our oblivion, we failed to notice her presence as she entered their room, standing before us in silence. In that instant, I understood that everything had unraveled, the world seemed to shatter before her gaze. I felt a weight in my chest, unable to utter a word while my father remained frozen, struggling. To find a response, the atmosphere in the house was thick with heaviness and tension, leaving no space for understanding or compassion. After my mother confronted the horrifying truth, she said nothing and quietly left. The air felt frozen, and the dynamic between my father and me shifted into something strange. Laden with pressure and indescribable embarrassment, we found ourselves at a loss for words or actions. After all the secrets had been laid bare, the days that followed were steeped in heavy silence. My mother didn't return home, and eventually she filed for divorce. My parents chose to end what I once believed was an unbreakable bond. The house now felt empty and cold, forcing me to confront the remnants of a once joyful family. I found myself in turmoil, torn between my father and mother, unsure of whom to side with. My father, who had always been my pillar of strength, had transformed into a source of my despair. Meanwhile, my mother, who had nurtured me since childhood, now seemed distant bird, be an unhealable sorrow. It dawned on me that my misguided emotions and vulnerabilities had led to this irreversible fracture. The aftermath of my decisions shattered my family in ways I never anticipated. The repercussions stretched beyond my mother, impacting my father and me, eroding the love and trust we once shared. It became clear to me that boundaries within family ties must be honored. Once violated, the path to restoration is nearly impossible. Love, no matter how profound, cannot mend such grave errors. Now I find myself at crossroads, uncertain of my future and the people I might return to. Doubt lingers within me, leaving me questioning my next steps. Confronting my father or mother feels daunting, as I am uncertain if I still hold a place in their living family I once cherished. Has transformed into a source of deep sorrow. One, the road ahead remains shrouded in uncertainty. All I'm aware of is the necessity to confront the repercussions of my actions and to learn to coexist with this enduring pain. I anticipate it. Sharing this narrative will invite a criticism from many who may deem my actions unforgivable, yet I am prepared to embrace their perspectives and accept scrutiny that comes my way. The most crucial aspect is that I have summoned courage to confront my reality and embrace the pain and repercussions of my actions. My ultimate counsel to those who are hearing this narrative is to remain vigilant and uphold boundaries in every relationship, particularly within the family. At times, affection and intimacy can obscure our judgment, resulting in poor choices we never anticipated making. Keep in mind that every action carries consequence, and some mistakes are irreparable, leaving only hurt and harm in their wake. Endurance is key. Do not allow fleeting feelings to obscure your judgment. Resist the pull of frailty that may lead you down regrettable roads. Uphold boundaries and safeguard love and trust within your family. For once shattered, they cannot be mended. Occasionally, we are granted a singular opportunity to cherish what truly matters, and losing it can bring profound sorrow. I appreciate everyone for taking the time to hear my narrative. If you find value in it, your support through likes and subscriptions would mean a great deal. Stay tuned for the upcoming tales. Thank you, and until next time.